Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, homeless encampments are exploding across the Seattle area, in parks especially, but there is a ray of sunshine. Before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
To address what's going on at the top of the news today, I need to take you back in time to 1999. A young Ari Hoffman had his 1987 Camaro that he was very proud of and thought he was a race car driver. I'm going to my prom. I pick up my friend Shai, who we are double dating, and we are going to meet the girls at the limo, but we got some errands to run first. What are the errands we need to run? We need to go get some money for prom night. We need to go pick up some tuxedos and some corsages. So we're riding around in my Camaro. We got the tuxedos. We got the corsages. Going to the bank to get some money. And as we're driving along, young Ari Hoffman goes through a yellow light. Well, there's not much going on in Westchester County, New York, so a police officer flips on his lights and starts following a young Ari Hoffman. Ari decides, you know what? I'm fast. I'm a race car driver. I got a Camaro. I'm just going to hit the gas and go. So what happens? There's another red light coming ahead. You can make a right turn on red. I hit the right turn, and I gun it. I absolutely floor it, and I am going, and no cops to be seen anywhere. And I'm so proud of myself. I got away from the police. Wouldn't you know, a few blocks later, a couple cop cars from the front cut me off, a couple cop cars from the back cut me off. And shall we just say it's a miracle I made it to my prom night, because I did spend about 5 to 6 hours in a cell as a guest of the New Rochelle Police Department. Because I ran from the police. Because I was a dumb teenager. That could have worked out a lot worse, by the way, than me being here in front of you now. You don't run from the police. You follow police's instructions. And I'll tell you something else. Back and forth, everybody's going to have this debate for the rest of time. They're going to analyze that video like it's the Zapruder film from every single angle. And the unavoidable fact is, whether or not you think the cop should have opened fire, if the lady hadn't run from the police, none of this would have happened. Need I remind you of the brilliant political commentator Chris Rock?
Have you ever been face to face with a police officer and wondered, is he about to kick my ass? Well, wonder no more. If you follow these easy tips, you'll be fine. First, obey the law. Laws were made for a reason. Think of them as hints. You've heard people say, man, I wouldn't do that shit if I was you. Well, here's some of that shit. Carjacking, armed robbery, arson, selling drugs, buying drugs, stabbing, shooting. You know, you probably won't get your ass kicked if you just use common sense. If you jump a subway turnstile, you might just get off with a warning from the police. But if you jump a turnstile carrying a loaded gun and smoking a joint, then maybe you need your ass kicked. We all know what happened to Rodney King. But Rodney wouldn't have got his ass kicked if he had just followed this simple tip. When you see flashing police lights in your mirror, stop immediately. Everybody knows, if the police have to come and get you, they're bringing an ass kicking with them. Here's a no-brainer. If you're listening to loud rap music, turn that off. Blasting the police while you're getting pulled over by the police is just ignorant. When an officer approaches your car, be polite.
Is there a problem, officer?
And stay in your car with your hands on the wheel.
What the do you want, mother?
Unless you want your ass
Is this whole thing a tragedy? Absolutely. Let's go over the facts of what we know, because there's a lot of speculation out there, and nobody knows any more than I do at this point. Here's what we know. A video shows a car going kind of diagonally across the street surrounded by ICE agents. The ICE agents are saying, stop, get out of the vehicle, giving orders. And instead of complying, the woman behind the wheel decides to flee, clipping an ICE agent in the process, who opens fire, killing the woman, and her car crashes. We don't know what happens before that. We don't know why that car was at an angle. Did she already try and drive into them once before? We don't know. Why is ICE on the ground in Minnesota? Because Minnesota is up to its eyeballs in not complying with federal regulations and laws and a whole bunch of fraud. They are there to make sure that illegal alien criminals are out of the country. They have been surged to that area because more and more fraud keeps getting revealed, and most of it is being done by illegal aliens and immigrants in the Somalian community. They are there looking for illegal aliens. If this woman wanted to protest, she could have been like the hundreds of protesters that are out there on the streets of Minnesota protesting. She could have done that. She could have written a very strongly worded letter. A car is a weapon if used as such. I'm teaching my daughter to drive right now, and I taught her that. It is a 2-ton weapon you can kill somebody or yourself with. You have to be careful with it. If the woman was freaked out, she should have complied with police instructions and fought it out in court. How did the car get there in the first place? Now, if she had avoided this, if she had complied, none of this would have happened. If Minnesota had followed the law, ICE wouldn't need to be there in the first place. If they hadn't allowed rampant fraud, the federal authorities would not need to be there at all. At all. So let's be clear about what led up to this tragedy. You want to get into an argument about whether or not she should have been shot? Fine, let's have the argument. But don't flee from the cops. We teach our teenagers that. We teach everybody that. Now, the response to this is a problem. And the response to this is a problem because Tim Walz, today, there was a hearing in Congress where representatives from the Minnesota legislature were telling everything they know about the Minnesota fraud. And it's worse than that because they were saying, we've been warning about this. We knew about this. Tim Walz knew about this. We tried to stop it. Think about this for a second. If Jim Walsh, Travis Couture, Chris Corey, I don't know, a few more of them, went and told Congress everything they know about what's going on here in Washington, you would have a very similar hearing. And all of us in Washington would be like, yeah, we knew it was happening. They knew it was happening. Everybody knew it was happening. But Bob Ferguson wouldn't do anything about it. But Nick Brown wouldn't do anything about it. That's what's happening on Capitol Hill. Why are they ramping up the rhetoric? They don't care about the random lady who was killed. They want to score political points. Mayor Jacob Fry, mayor of Minnesota, is trying to look all cool. This is the guy who 5 minutes ago was waving a Somalian flag. This guy is likely bought and paid for. Now, just a short time ago, before this terrible tragedy, Mayor Jacob Fry was basically egging all this on.
I am increasingly concerned because of the chaos that is being caused by these ICE agents that somebody is going to get seriously injured or killed. Somebody is going to get seriously injured or killed. And whether that is an ICE agent or a community member, we all know the tinderbox that could explode because of it. We all know that the federal government is looking for reasons to deploy more and more people to Minneapolis and blue cities around the country. We all know that we cannot afford to lose a single Minneapolis resident because they showed up and decided to protect their neighbors, because they showed up and decided to express their constitutional right to free speech. And so that concern is deep. It is held, by the way, not just by me and our residents and the people who are standing up behind me. The concern about getting somebody killed is also held by our police officers.
You don't have the constitutional right to try and hit somebody with a car. You don't have a constitutional right to try and hit a federal officer with a car. And if you were so concerned about this, why didn't you just enforce the law? Why didn't you just comply? Instead, you want to be a sanctuary city. Instead, you want to be a sanctuary state. It sounded like you almost wanted this to happen so you would have a flashpoint. And by the way, after his comments today, I'm pretty sure this is exactly what he wanted to happen.
But I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave.
Oh, so edgy. Oh, so cool because he dropped the F-bomb. This is how you know Democrats don't have an argument. Whenever they start cursing, they have no argument. They just want to seem edgy and cool. Now, Jacob Fry said he saw the tape and he knew what happened. Mike, we've looked at that tape from what, 4 different angles now? 3 or 4 different angles at this point?
At least. I've kind of lost track.
Okay.
I've been watching it a lot.
Okay, I think you've been watching it more than me. I think I watched each version twice. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I saw the slowed down version. From what I could tell, she clipped the officer when she was driving away from one angle. Is it a clean shoot? Yeah, but did he have to shoot her? Don't know. You can have that argument, and we don't know what happened beforehand. We don't know what happened beforehand. But you know what? I can admit, I don't know all the details. I want to know what happened beforehand. Did she drive into a whole bunch of ICE agents to protest? Is that what happened? In fact, Jacob Fry admits he doesn't know what happened, but then he goes off on this whole rant against ICE agents.
About the work that is moving forward, and they need to leave Minneapolis.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Mayor, you may know this with your legal background. If a shooting is found to not be justified, does the city have any legal, or the state rather, have any legal recourse to bring charges against this ICE agent, given that this person is a federal agent, if the feds don't?
So obviously, and I have to always lead with this caveat because it is true, an investigation still does need to be conducted. I had my perception of what took place based on the vehicle.
Whoa, 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 whoa. 2 seconds ago, you were saying ICE killed this lady. 2 seconds ago, you were blaming ICE 100% for this. Now you say it's your perception? By the way, Tim Walz is no better. Tim Walz, today, you had that testimony I referenced earlier up on Capitol Hill, specifically linking Tim Walz to the fraud in Minnesota. You want to know why he's not running for re-election? Because he's worried about federal charges. That's why. So Tim Walz sees this and he goes, ooh, opportunity to clear my good name. I'll just beat up on ICE. I'll beat up on Donald Trump. Let's inflame this situation worse.
I want Minnesotans to hear this from me. The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time.
The last time you egged on protesters, they burned down a police station in Minneapolis along with half the city. I remember the Summer of Love. You decide to use the National Guard to shoot paintballs at people who are out on their porches during COVID, during all that. And you let the city burn to the ground. Tampon Tim had more to say than just that.
And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary.
Whoa! Are you saying you are deploying the National Guard to go fight ICE? Okay, so let me make sure I got this right. You don't want the feds to get rid of criminal illegal aliens who have allegedly stolen billions of dollars from your state. You don't want them to deport the criminal illegal aliens who have committed horrible crimes against your citizens. You're saying they're safe. But what you do want to do is you want to have the National Guard called up to go head-to-head with ICE. You didn't bring in the National Guard to shut down the rioting at the police station. Your wife said she liked the smell of the burning tires outside her window. Are you kidding me with this? So now you want an insurrection against the federal government? That's what it sounds like you're calling for, Tim Walz. And make no mistake about it. Do you know why he's doing this? Purely as a distraction from his own troubles. If Minneapolis goes up in flames tonight or any point in the near future, it's going to be because Tim Walz wanted a distraction from that hearing up on Capitol Hill and the rampant fraud allegations that have now been tied allegedly directly back to him. At this point, people are using this tragedy for political purposes. And that's exactly what happened in the summer of 2020. They used the death of George Floyd in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, for the exact same purposes, and they're trying to do it again. They really pick the worst martyrs for their cause. Because no matter how you slice that video, no matter how many times you analyze that video, if she hadn't run from the cops, none of this would have happened. We'd be talking about other things today, like the fraud hearing up on Capitol Hill, which directly implicates Tim Walz and the Democrats of that state. I want to know what you think. What do you think if you saw that video? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. Do you think the cop was in the right? Do you think the cop was in the wrong? Let us know. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots of you are going to get to weigh in on this terrible tragedy. And also, homeless encampments are exploding across Seattle. We'll tell you about one ray of sunshine when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. While you're on over there, rate it and share it with your friends so that way they can be part of the fun. Looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on what's going on in Minnesota, so we go right to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Sandy in Renton. Sandy, what's going on?
Yeah, I would bet if I had a paycheck coming in, I would bet my last paycheck that some politician in Minnesota is going to accuse that officer of murder.
Oh, yeah. What I bet, I think you're 100% right. What I think is going to happen is the federal government will say it was clean, even though, yeah, I mean, it was clean-ish, I think is the best way to put it, clean-ish. But I think the federal government, no way they're going to press charges on this guy. And what will happen is Tim Walz and his whole crew, Keith Ellison, all of them, to distract from the scandal they're all buried in, they're going to make this guy the poster child of Donald Trump. Just watch. That's exactly what I think is going to happen too, Sandy. I think he's going to be facing all that.
They've been under so much pressure.
I'm sorry?
They've been under so much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
The troops have been under so much pressure from these protesters. I mean, they were pushing for it to happen.
Yeah, they wanted this to happen. They always want violence. They're always confronting them. Right now in the streets, they're attacking them. Right now in the streets. That's what you're seeing on the TV. They are attacking federal agents. Man, it's amazing how quickly all these protesters get motivated and get out there and get mobilized. Don't these people have what am I saying? On a Wednesday, they're available to come out and protest, right, Sandy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Just come on, show up for the protest. Right. I guess their shift was over at Starbucks. Sandy, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to weigh in on it, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Robert in Linwood. Robert, what's up?
Hi. Hey, I just wanted to weigh in and say that the use of deadly force, that's a little bit excessive, I mean, if
that's a fair conversation. That's a fair conversation to have. But then I'll put this to you, Robert. Somebody comes at you with a car. What are you supposed to do?
Get out of the way.
Okay, and then what?
Well, if they don't stop, you get their license number. You follow them home. Have a uniformed police officer follow them home in their car. Deadly force isn't called for.
I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, Robert. I'm not debating that. But what I am saying is that in a split-second decision, somebody comes at you with a car, people are going to say, I want to go home safely to my family. Now, here's the problem I have, Robert. Here's what I don't know yet, and you don't know this either, and nobody else knows this because we are all Monday morning quarterbacking, right? We don't know why the car was like that in the first place. Why were they ordering her out of the car? Because let me show you how the scenario changes for a minute, and I want your opinion if you think I'm right, okay? So if they had already ordered her out of the car and ordered her to stop, and if she had already tried to hit them with the car before, and I'm not saying that's what happened, we just don't know, would you say that changes it in your mind?
Yes and no. I think you're right, and it ticks me off that we only get little clips, and so nobody ever has the full picture. And I think part of that is because the news, they make their bacon by creating inflammatory situations.
Yeah, but, I think you're right, by the way. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. In fact, I don't know if I've ever told this story before. So my father's a lawyer, right? And my teacher brought him in when we were learning about the play 12 Angry Men in school. And what my father did was he arranged in advance for me and my best friend to get into a fight spontaneously in the classroom, then run out of the room. And what my father did was interrogate every other person in the room as to what they saw, who started it. And all of them had a different version, even though all of them saw the exact same thing, because they all started paying attention at a different moment. And the problem we have right here is every video I've seen so far picks up after. We don't know what happened beforehand. And I really want to know what happened beforehand. Robert, you make a good case. You're not wrong. I don't want to say that you are wrong, but I'll say is I don't think any of us have enough information. And at the same time, a car coming at you, I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of that officer, would you?
Well, I'm sure that whatever charges they're not going to press this because for that reason. But I think that the way everything that I've seen is being handled, there should be no tolerance. These protesters that get out of hand and start, pushing the cops and this and that, they should be arrested on the spot. There should be hundreds of arrests. I recall like the '68 convention in Chicago. They were out there with the paddy wagons, and they were packed.
Exactly.
And that's what needs to start happening. You need to have police officers with billy clubs and make these people afraid, literally afraid for their life. But that's not what's happening,
Why do you think they calmed down in Portland? Why do you think they calmed down in all these other cities? Because some of them got hit with federal charges. The people in Minneapolis who are on the left think they can get away with this because it's Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, and they got away with it in 2020. Excellent phone
they burned
call,
the whole
Robert.
town down.
Exactly. Excellent phone call. I'm glad we could have conversations like this.
Thanks, Ari.
Yep. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Rico says over on the text line, Ari, a car is a 3,000-pound bullet. I agree with you. Which is why I'm saying you come at me with a car and I'm holding a gun, I'm going to open fire. Let's not forget also in the slow motion version I saw of one of the angles, he fires after he gets hit. It actually looks like, Jeremy says this over on the text line, it looks like the guy was trying to get out of the way as she hits him, and he fired right as he was getting hit. That's something to take into account also. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, is there going to be some big riot here in Seattle because of it? Because last time they did this in Minnesota, lunatics took over 6 blocks of downtown Seattle. They were so mad about this. Right here, Stu says over on the text line, so there's a march along the January 6th path to honor the lady that was murdered by the Capitol Hill police. The woman in Minnesota tries to run down a cop, and everybody's up in arms about her. It makes you wonder about the direction our country is going. Too bad this happened, but FAFO lessons for other protesters. And I'm hearing a lot of that today. You want to weigh in on the discussion? You give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, the homeless are taking over all these different parts of Seattle, but there is one small ray of sunshine. We'll tell you what it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I've been paying attention to my commute since Katie Wilson became the mayor of Seattle. And it seems like our criminal / taxpayer-funded drug addicts know what's going on in City Hall. They know they can camp wherever they want. They know nobody's going to stop them. And so they are moving into the parks. Mike, I don't know if you've noticed the exact same thing, but when I'm driving around Seattle, seeing a lot more homeless people, seeing the homeless people that are there getting friends, seeing the encampments expand. In fact, our friend Andrea Suarez from We Heart Seattle has actually been documenting how even right before the inauguration, it was like word went out and everybody started growing their homeless encampments. This is socialism at its finest. This is the defund, abolish the police activist who is in charge, who is egging all this on. She said she's not going to do sweeps. She said she couldn't even answer the question when she was asked that in a debate. So now you have the results of it. And you're starting to see that happen in Seattle. She talks about wanting to honor those who don't make a living. Well, we can honor the drug addicts, I guess. That's going to be our city, which means crime's going to be worse. You know what I actually say? I think Donald Trump should pull the World Cup from Seattle. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I think he should pull the World Cup from Seattle. Do you remember a few years ago there was a tourist in the hotel area, came out of his hotel, got stabbed? Do you remember there's another tourist that got stabbed to death on the light rail? You really want that kind of national PR again? Again? Seriously, how much worse do you think this is going to be? Now, I think there may actually be something that could be in the way of Katie Wilson. This is me being overly optimistic, but I do see a small ray of sunshine. And you're going to say, Ari, what's that? Nothing's good. You've got a leftist city council. You've got a leftist city attorney who doesn't want to prosecute crime. So we're back to the Pete Holmes era. You've got a woke police chief who's terrible at his job. And you've got Katie Wilson, the socialist communist mayor. What's the ray of sunshine? Well, actually, it's from an unexpected place. It's from the Seattle City Council. They just elected a new president. And their new president is Joy Hollingsworth. And I know a lot of you are going to say, but Ari, she's a lefty. Yes, she is. But, Mike, anytime we've reached out to her, has she agreed to come on the show? Every single time we reach out, she always says the same thing, right, Mike?
How about no?
No, she says yes every time. She always says yes.
Yes.
There you go. That's what I was looking for. Yes.
Yes, what?
Exactly. Yes, I'll come on the show. That's what she always says whenever we ask her to come on the show. She saved that dog. You remember she saved the dog from them homeless people that were abusing the dog. She saved the dog. And actually, it's funny. I always get put at these political tables at fundraisers, and I often end up sitting next to Joy Hollingsworth. We always have a great time. Her and I disagree on a lot politically, but she's somebody you can have a conversation with. She's somebody you can talk to. And that's actually very, very encouraging. I was worried they were going to pick Dan Strauss just because he's been there the longest. But you know what's funny to me? I don't know if Danny Boy threw his hat in the ring. You know why? My guess is he's saving up his political capital. My guess is Dan Strauss wants the city to go to hell in a handbasket. And do you know why? So he can sit there and say, I'm the moderate compared to Katie Wilson. Vote for me. Yes, I know I'm making this prediction 4 years in advance. But watch. Dan Strauss is going to run for mayor, and people will say, Ari, why aren't you voting for Dan Strauss? Yeah, absolutely crazy, by the way. Absolutely crazy. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio Line, take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's up, man?
Well, you're forgetting another angle of this. First of all, that was obstruction of justice is what was going on there, and they had every right to do what they did. But the biggest letdown here is, once again, I'm sorry to tell you, you got to start looking at the Republican Party, and I'm going to tell you why. Here we are again, big transformational election, and what do you see from the Republicans? You see plenty from MAGA and from Trump, but what do you see from the Republicans? I'll tell you what you see. This is what I see. We sat here and watched this all come on us again, with no Republicans doing anything to stop this thing from happening. There was no restraining orders, no injunctions.
Wait, hang on. Ron, what are we talking about here? What
We're
thing?
talking about what happened today.
What restraining orders? What are you talking about? I'm not following you.
I'm telling you, are you kidding me? I've sat and watched the last 10, 15 years, the Democrats throwing out restraining orders and injunctions, preventing Trump from doing anything, almost from having even lunch. I don't even know why this continues to happen. They don't ever do anything.
Hang on a second. Ron, you're really worked up, and I'm not following your logic here. President Trump and the Department of Justice are going after people like James Comey. Today on Capitol Hill, there was literally a hearing of the Republicans tying the fraud to Tim Walz. Of all days for you to bring up this point, I'm not really following it because this is exactly what they want. What you want them to be doing is what they were doing today.
Well, you're talking one individual.
No, I'm not talking one individual. I'm talking about, whoa. No. What I'm talking about, I don't know if you saw the hearings today. We're going to play all the clips later in the show, so you got to keep listening because we're going to play all the clips. But today, you had a hearing up on Capitol Hill going through the layers of the fraud, and it wasn't just Tim Walz, it wasn't just Keith Ellison, it was all the Democrats in the Minnesota legislature at every level of government that they were spilling the tea on. It was every single one of them. The Department of Justice, you literally just had the other day where you had Pete Hegseth say they're going to be taking away some of the pension benefits from Mark Kelly. You have the Trump administration, the Department of Justice going after people like James Comey. That is the Republican Party now. You want to get mad about what happened before Trump got elected? Fine, more power to you. But you're venting about something that seems to be being solved the way you want it to be solved right now.
Well, you're talking at that level, but I'm talking about what's going on right now. This should not be happening. Like that last caller said, where's all the arrests in the street? What is going on? They don't. Once again, we're just going.
Wait a second. Here's what I understand. Ron, I got to correct you again, man, because literally you had ICE arrest over 1,000 people over the last, 48 hours, 72 hours? 1,000 people. The arrests are happening. You want to say you want more of the protesters arrested? I'm not going to disagree with that, but ICE's job is not local law enforcement. Minnesota is still run by morons in the Democrat Party. So if you want the protesters arrested, I can't disagree with you there. I want them arrested too, but the Trump administration and the Department of Justice have been prosecuting the ones in Portland. They've been prosecuting the ones all across the Pacific Northwest, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in New York. And odds are these guys are next. So I know you're frustrated about beforehand. I don't know why you're frustrated now.
I'm just upset because, once again, it's the politicians getting away with their crimes, and I'm getting sick and tired of it.
Well, I agree with you on that because I don't think that Tim Walz will ever see the inside of a jail cell, unfortunately. Ron, appreciate the call, appreciate the discussion, appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Bob in the 509 says, Ari, in leftist enclaves like Seattle and Minneapolis, it's been the norm since WTO over a quarter century ago. Wow, quarter century ago. That makes me feel super old. As long as protesters qualify as radically left, anything goes. Impeding traffic, ignoring laws, actively attacking law enforcement have become the accepted norm. It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle following a 25-year open season. Officers need to exercise a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to interference during law enforcement efforts, even in a socialist workers' paradise like Seattle or Minneapolis. Bob in the 509 is 100% right. But I think that's what the Trump administration is doing. The problem is, guys, they're outmatched. Look, the dirty secret about law enforcement is that they are outnumbered every single day. And if all of us decide to have a mass uprising against police, there wouldn't be anything they could really do about it. They can't open up on us with automatic weapons fire in downtown Seattle. So right now they're outnumbered. ICE is outnumbered. There's only so much they can do, and crowd control right now isn't the thing. After this incident, you know what happened? They left the area, and they left the crowd control to the local police. So once again, the local Minnesota police got to deal, the local Minneapolis police got to deal with this. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's going on?
Hey, nothing much here. When I was just thinking, this mayor out there in Minneapolis, basically what he actually did was by telling ICE to get the out of Minneapolis. I think this tells me that he and Governor Walz are basically, if they want chaos basically they'll just get that and an insurrection.
That's what they want. They want that to distract from the hearings that happened on Capitol Hill today, which were absolutely damning. Appreciate the call, Leonard. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, looks like my diet is now approved by the government. I'll tell you all about how we're making America healthy again, sort of. When we come back, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The White House's Make America Healthy Again team rolled out a bunch of new federal dietary guidelines, calling the changes the most significant shift in U.S. nutrition policy in decades. as health officials moved away from grain-heavy recommendations and toward what they described as real food. Now, for me, I go, woohoo, meat's at the top. Give me the red meat. Give me all of it. Look, guys, the truth is we all eat too much processed food. Look at me. Those of you who have met me in person know I eat too much processed food. You can tell by looking at my waistline. It's really something I got to address because it ain't healthy. Yeah, I'm trying to lose a few pounds, but I'm always trying to lose a few pounds. I got to be better about that. Now, the new framework is presented as an upside-down pyramid that places vegetables, fruits, proteins, dairy, and healthy fats at the top, with whole grains positioned at the bottom. So basically, avoid the carbs. Is that how many years, how many decades have we been hearing that for? It's nothing new. We like the carbs because they're tasty. You know what? I'm actually going to go with RFK Jr. on this one because anybody I know who actually follows a diet like this, they're in way better shape than I am. Their waistline looks a lot better than mine does. And yet the left looks at this and goes absolutely crazy. Absolutely nuts. I don't know why. Here's all he said. He said that nutrient-dense foods over processed carbohydrates, that these new guidelines recognize that whole nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and lower healthcare costs. The new framework centers on protein, healthy fats, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. It's upside down, a lot of people say. It was actually upside down before. He's right. I don't want to admit that he's right, but he's right. And people are losing their minds over it because the Trump administration can do nothing right. It's beyond crazy. In fact, it makes people forget their history, too. Here's another big announcement. Marco Rubio and the Trump administration have said that they want to buy Greenland. Not invade Greenland, buy Greenland. Why do they want Greenland? They want the resources. We had them before. We kind of mismanaged it. We want to do a better job. We want it back. So we're talking about buying it. A little history lesson for everybody. You know that we didn't originally have Alaska. And it wasn't a war with Russia that got us Alaska. We bought Alaska. Anybody here study history? The Louisiana Purchase, because we bought it from the French. This is normal in the course of history. And also, you have a strategic issue which we have to address, which is dealing with China over the poles. How flights travel, how shipping travels. There's a reason this is of strategic importance. And right now we are giving Russia and China access to areas where they could become a bigger threat to our country. It's about securing America. It's about getting the resources. And people are losing it. So make sure I got this right. You're mad that we took out the dictator by going into the country and snatching him. You said we should have done a more political, a more diplomatic approach. Now, when Trump says he just wants to buy the thing outright, you're mad too. They will never be happy. The guy could literally cure cancer, and they will find an excuse to be mad. He can do no right, even though strategically and from a standpoint of our resources, this is a good move. Can we afford it? Different conversation. Can we actually afford the thing? That's a problem. Will it pay off dividends in the future? I hope it's not like a baseball or football stadium where you say, look at all the jobs it's going to bring in, and then they never actually make as much money as the taxpayers lay out for them. I hope it's a good investment. Haven't seen the numbers yet. Right now, this is all pie in the sky ideals. We haven't actually done it, but no matter what he does, people can't be happy about it. That's why I like John Fetterman, by the way. John Fetterman discusses, yes, this is of strategic importance. This is importance because of its resources. Let's see where it goes. But the fact that they're freaking out over the food pyramid, guys, they're not going to be in the grocery store stopping you from buying the ding-dongs or the yodels or the sunny doodles or anything else. You can still buy them. Oh, right. Those are all East Coast foods. Mike's looking at me kind of crazy. He's like, I don't know what any of that stuff is. Those are Drake's cakes.
Those are all made up.
Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends.
Made up cakes.
when we come back. Seems like Emily Randall, our very own congresswoman, doesn't want us to deal with the fraud, wants us to prosecute white people. Yeah, she actually said it. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, will the Democrats finally repeal the bill that is literally killing children, or will they refuse to do so again? But before we get to any of that, there's a poll up on Como News. Now, this poll was actually posted yesterday, and the question is, should an independent auditor be appointed to investigate potential fraud in our daycare system? Normal question. The results have not changed from yesterday. Usually they move a little bit. Triple the amount of people voted today as yesterday, and the results have been the same. 3% say no. 97% say yes. Because what reason would you have for not investigating the fraud? The only reason you would want for somebody not to investigate the fraud is you are such a bleeding heart liberal that you say it's racist to investigate it, or you're in on it. Those are really the only two reasons. Look, an investigation could exonerate everybody. It could prove Ari Hoffman, Cam Higbee, Jonathan Cho, Carlene Johnson, could prove all of us wrong, that there's no fraud going on whatsoever. Why don't they want to do it? Why don't they want to do it? Well, our very own Congresswoman, Emily Randall, from here in Washington, was actually talking about the fraud up on Capitol Hill today during the hearings about the fraud in Minnesota. Now, her state is about to be next. There's a whole bunch of stuff we haven't even posted yet, we haven't even shared yet, we haven't even talked about yet because there's so much of it and so much to research. But Congresswoman Emily Randall says, forget the fraud. Let's just prosecute white guys instead.
We can trot out all of the data that we want to create the sense that there is a bad guy. There is a bad group of people. There are folks who are not among us. There are folks who are other. And I think we should spend a lot more time looking at ourselves, looking at American citizens, looking at white men.
So ignore the data. That's what she said. Ignore the data that's showing there might be fraud and likely is fraud. And instead, investigate American citizens, especially those white guys. Well, thanks for saying the quiet part out loud, lady. That's what they want. They just want to target you because you're white, because you're a dude, and because you're an American citizen. And she literally wants to ignore the data. Wait, hang on. Is this the same party that says they follow the data, follow the science, listen to us, we know what we're talking about, we know data, so ignore the data when politically inconvenient for you? Is that right? Yesterday, Mike found these clips. Nick Brown was being interviewed by Chris Daniels over at Como News at an event yesterday. And Chris Daniels, God bless him, was asking Nick Brown about the fraud. Nick Brown's answer wasn't that different from what Emily Randall said today.
But I was really concerned was about the level of harassment, sort of random vigilante people just showing up on people's doorsteps. Like, that would make all of us scared. And some of the rhetoric around it, frankly, is racist, and sort of the hate that we've seen generated around that, and that's an area of concern for me as well. And so I think we need to investigate things that are happening. We need to hold people accountable, but we need to also tamper down some of these harassing allegations and see if that's something that we need to look into as well.
So if you investigate fraud, you are now committing harassment. You are now a massive, massive racist. You're a vigilante. So Jonathan Cho and Cam Higbee are Batman and Robin? Is that what we're going with here? They're vigilantes. Cho's older, I think. So that's Batman, and he's Batman. Cam Higbee's Robin. Is that what we're going with here? Or would you prefer, I don't know. Who's the one, the fake super? Which one? The one from the Where's All the Green? Who am I talking about?
The
Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass. That one. Yeah.
I was
going to
say Green Hornet?
No, not that.
Because then that gets
makes
into
him,
some
that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
We're not going down that road. That's a whole thing. Yes. No. Right. He's Kick-Ass. And the girl, wait.
So wait a sec. So you're saying in this scenario that Jonathan Cho is Kick-Ass and that would make Cam Higbee Hit Girl?
Yeah, that doesn't work either. That doesn't work either. Let's go back to Batman and Robin.
Okay,
Let's go back to Batman and Robin. We'll do that. But really? Is this what's going? This is what you're vigilantes. So is Jesse Jones from the Problem Solvers a vigilante because he used to do the same thing? Or any of the other people who used to have these deep investigative reports? Are they vigilantes? Is that what we're going with here? Yeah. He doesn't want to investigate these claims either. These are the people who vote for him. He doesn't want to investigate them. When I was running for office the day of the election, I got a call from a friend of mine, and they said, Ari, we're at the Rainier Beach Community Center, and there's this massive room filled with Somalians, and somebody is telling them how to vote, and they're all filling out the ballots together. There's nothing I could do. I had other things going on that day. But these are the people who are told, vote Democrat, and they will continue funding your daycares. They will continue funding whatever else it is. Of course, Nick Brown doesn't want to investigate it. And notice how he keeps saying, yeah, I'll investigate it, but there's not much to investigate. In fact, he starts discounting that there may even be any fraud.
Obviously, people are sharing things on social media, but has anybody sent you documented complaints of fraud?
Well, I'm not sure if anybody has because we get a lot of intake, so my team hasn't briefed me on that. But we're seeing a lot of allegations. I mean, even what we saw in Minnesota was a lot of allegations, much of which has been debunked already in like the 48 hours. You know, if there are allegations here, that's something that law enforcement and the regulatory agencies need to take very seriously. But what I don't trust is some random YouTuber showing up at somebody's house saying there's fraud here because most often they don't have all the information. They haven't done their own fact-checking or fact-finding. But that's something that we need to take very seriously.
You know what's funny? You haven't done your own fact-checking. You haven't done your own fact-finding at all. You literally just said you hadn't done it. And you're worried about the random YouTubers? Here's something else. Mike, check me on this. Has anything Nick Shirley posted about been debunked yet? Anything? I haven't seen.
Not even a little.
Not even a little bit. In fact, if anything, it's been proven more, right? So let's take the stuff that right, see, Baby Yoda knows. Let's take the stuff that I've posted, Jonathan Cho's posted, Cam Higbee's posted. Cam Higbee.
Please, it's Kick-Ass and Hit Girl.
You're going to not let me forget that. We're going to keep bringing that one up. So, okay. I was going with the Nicolas Cage guy. What was his guy? His guy. And then he had Kick-Ass along, but then you still end up with Hit Girl. Because Hit Girl's still his sidekick, no matter how you slice it. Yeah. That's not a good one. Okay.
Either way, Cam Higbee is Hit Girl.
It's not good.
Chloe Grace Moretz.
Not good. Not good.
Call me maybe, 206-421-5757.
I definitely have to send this clip to them afterwards.
Yes.
Yes, for
and
sure.
Maybe we'll get our friends in the AI department to
have
make
a little
portraiture of our dynamic duo.
So,
all right, you guys.
Yeah, so what happens here is all the stuff we've posted, they haven't said we were lying about it. They just said they don't want to investigate it. They're demonizing us as vigilantes, as racists, saying we're doing harassment. They're not saying we're wrong. They're saying ignore the data, like what Emily Randall said. Now, if you think I'm a liar, then come after me for it and call me a liar. If you think the things I have posted are fraudulent and it's not actually exposing fraud, then say so. But you're not doing that because I'm using your data. Now, you know what their easiest out for this is, Mike? It's a bureaucratic mistake. The places that say they've been dissolved or whatever, we don't keep great records, it's the government. But when Cam Higbee or Jonathan Cho shows up at a house and there's no kids in that daycare and they're getting millions of dollars from Washington State, that only proves our cause more. There's a place I put up in my socials, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hoffa, they're over on Twitter. I put up a house today. I blocked out the address. I cut out the name of the institution. But I put up how much money they're getting. They are not registered with the state. They are registered as having been dissolved or out of business. and they are getting close to $100,000 a year. If I am wrong about all that, then say I'm wrong. Call me out on it, but you're not doing that. Instead, this is what Emily Randall's saying.
We can trot out all of the data that we want to create the sense that there is a bad guy. There is a bad group of people. There are folks who are not among us. There are folks who are other. And I think we should spend a lot more time looking at ourselves, looking at American citizens, looking at white men.
Okay, she literally said it. Ignore the data. Go after the white men, because I don't like the white men. In fact, Nick Brown really wants to blame everybody else than Washington state agencies that may be responsible for this fraud. He blamed President Trump and Elon Musk as if they made this whole thing up. Mike, has Elon Musk been in the studio before? We've been here since the beginning. No, he's never been here before. I mean, I would love to have him in studio, and if you're listening, Mr. Musk, it'd be an honor to have you on the show. I think we'd have a fun conversation. He is not knocking on doors of Somali daycares here in Washington. President Trump is not knocking on doors of Somali daycares here in Washington, and yet Nick Brown is blaming them?
I know, but a lot of this is generated by the president and Elon Musk tweeting out unverified reports in Minnesota, and that quickly, grew a storm across the nation, and people, out making all these allegations. So there's a lot to weed through. I'm almost positive that a lot of that is nonsense, but if there's any truth to it, then we need to take it seriously.
But if you put the political aspect aside, isn't there an importance here with making sure that public dollars are spent the way they're intended and they've been allocated?
That's why I just said that a moment ago. I think I just said a minute ago, the public dollars and how it's
No, you didn't. You called it nonsense. You called it nonsense. You are never going to investigate this. By the way, Mike, thanks so much for finding this clip yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Because me going through it last night, there are all these different layers that I have a chance to analyze while we were listening to it yesterday on the show. It's not that they think we're wrong. It's that they don't want to address it, which is even more messed up, is that they probably know that we're right. And that's a bigger problem.
Well, and then it goes to smokescreen and misdirection tactics. Because listen to Nick Brown. He was like, oh, yeah, I was off last week. Oh, yeah, we've got tons of intake. So much intake. Oh, it's vigilante YouTubers and stuff. It's just like spin, spin, spin. And I've seen a lot of folks on our channels. Ari, you shared the clips on your social media on Twitter, and folks were kind of criticizing Chris Daniels, saying like, oh yeah, look at how he's like enthusiastically nodding. The mainstream media is carrying the water for Nick Brown. No, we make fun of Chris Daniels quite a bit, myself in particular, but this one, he wouldn't let up, because you can hear in these clips where he's trying to get something that resembles a straight answer out of Nick Brown, and he's just vigilantes, YouTubers, random YouTubers.
Right. In fact, Chris Daniels, and we make fun of him a lot, as you just said. Mike, perfect segue into the next section of the story. Perfect segue. Why? Because he could have left it at that. Chris Daniels could have left the story at that. Instead, he ran this story last night on Como News.
If there is one person who understands the need to audit major public spending, it may be Brian Sontag.
Find out who's responsible for those disbursements and making those decisions, and start there.
Is that a relatively easy question to answer?
Yeah, that one is.
Sontag, a Democrat, served for 20 years as state auditor.
This is a lack of oversight.
Flagging contracts at the Port of Seattle and WashDOT.
You cannot use public resources for personal use.
He looks at state audits like this 2024 document involving the Department of Child, Youth, and Families that suggests a lack of internal controls for the distribution of millions of taxpayer dollars as an example of a need for clarity.
You've got to be accountable over those dollars and be able to demonstrate to the public the controls in place to safeguard that public money.
DCYF says it only pays providers after services have been rendered and attendance records are verified with random monthly audits.
There are questions And I'm not saying they aren't answerable, but you don't know until you get the answers. The fact that there are other states involved with similar questions, I don't know how similar or what the relationships might be. The public, as well as state government, certainly needs answers.
By the way, you want to prove me wrong? We've posted the addresses and locations of these places in some cases. Cam Higbee has especially. Go check them out. Go do surprise inspections and say, Hoffman was wrong, Higbee was wrong, Cho was wrong. Prove us wrong. But they don't even want to do the inspection because then they're given credence to what we said. They want to ignore it. They want to be blissfully ignorant. And I can't believe it. Once again, I'm begging for national, federal intervention. As a conservative, I cannot believe I'm asking for this. And according to the White House press secretary, we might be getting it sooner than we think.
To date, the Department of Justice has charged 98 total defendants in several Medicaid fraud and related case programs. 64 were convicted, and 85 of the 98 charged were of Somali descent. The DOJ has also issued over 1,700 subpoenas, executed over 130 search warrants, and they have now added more attorneys to their office there to absorb the case flow. DHS is on the ground going door to door conducting large-scale criminal and HSI investigations. They have also sent approximately 2,000 agents to Minneapolis to assist with law enforcement and immigration enforcement. As I said, Secretary Noem was on the ground yesterday. The Department of Health and Human Services has also begun requiring a justification and photo evidence for all child care-related payments nationwide, and they required Minnesota to conduct a full audit of all child care centers. They also froze $185 million in funding to Minnesota. And Dr. Oz, who was just here, also notified Governor Walz they're going to begin auditing Medicaid recipients and deferring payments on claims based on waste, fraud, and abuse. The Department of Labor is also conducting a targeted review of Minnesota's unemployment program. Department of Agriculture requiring Minnesota to conduct recertification for SNAP recipients, and HUD has launched investigations into the public housing. SBA has also suspended nearly 7,000 borrowers amid suspected fraudulent activity. So, with all of that, rest assured this is an all-hands-on-deck effort from the entire administration to get to the bottom of this and to ensure that the ripping off of taxpayers in the state of Minnesota, and it won't just be Minnesota, it'll be any state across this country where fraud has taken place, and we are protecting law-abiding, tax-paying American citizens.
So tonight, after the show, I'm sending 2 emails. I'm sending an email to the AG's office, to Nick Brown's office, with everything I found so far. Now, some of you are going to say, Ari, well, it gives them a chance to cover their tracks. No, there's going to be more. And I'm going to ask for an investigation. I'm then going to send the exact same email to the Trump administration. And I'm going to say what's happening in Minnesota is happening here. We need your help. I'm going to send those emails tonight. And we're going to see which one is actually interested in finding out the truth and who actually wants to stop the fraud and be responsible, good stewards of taxpayer money. Looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on this, my friend. So when we come back, your phone calls, your texts, plus Mom Donnie's little helper who wants to seize all your private property because it's white supremacist to have it is in a lot of hot water. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Getting some absolutely great text today. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one from the 206. Ari, I would like to tell this committee that as a white man, I have started no fake Somali daycares. 206, make sure you include your name and town. Name and town, name and town, name and town. I want to give you full credit, I assume, somewhere in the Seattle area with that phone number. John in Lakewood. Ari, what's the Washington rat out haters line? Oh, you mean the bias and hate crimes hotline? Is that what you're talking about? I'd like to report Emily Randall for hate speech and racism against white men. Oh, John, that's good. I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you right now. First of all, you can do a Google search and you just type in Washington Hate Crimes Hotline, and you can report it online so you don't actually have to call anybody, because calling is very frustrating because you're just leaving a message. It's actually easier to do it online. So just Google it. It'll pop right up. But if you really want to call them, 1-855-225-1010. That's 1-855-225-1010. In fact, I think it'd be really funny if a whole bunch of our listeners just reported Emily Randall just for fun for bias against white men. In fact, I'm going to play that clip for those of you who might have missed it. And you guys decide if you should report Emily Randall to the Hate Crimes Hotline.
We can trot out all of the data that we want to create the sense that there is a bad guy. There is a bad group of people. There are folks who are not among us. There are folks who are other. And I think we should spend a lot more time looking at ourselves, looking at American citizens, looking at white men.
So she wants to get rid of the data, but go after white men for no reason other than their skin color? That's racist. That's bigoted. If you want to report Congresswoman Emily Randall from Washington to the Hate Crimes Hotline, the number is 1-855-225-1010. That's 1-855-225-1010, or just put in the website, just Google the website for the Washington Hate Crimes and Bias Hotline. It'll pop right up. It's easier to do it online than actually sit there on the phone. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Aaron in Poulsbo. Aaron, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? I called you before. Like, I'm an ex-addict, a father. I've got a lady that's a friend. She's an ex three-letter agency data analyst, and I asked her today because I saw the homeless industrial complex taking advantage of all of us when I was an addict. It was ridiculous. I set up a proton mail for Washington Stop the Fraud, and I want to see, like, if we can drum something up.
You mean for exposing Homeless Inc.? Well, what's interesting is, I don't know if you were listening to the show yesterday, Aaron. There's a fascinating case right now which involves Seattle Public Schools, Homeless Inc., nonprofits, and a drug cartel. And there were people who were getting money that they were supposed to be doing community safety. I don't know if you saw
Stopping
that.
the violence on the streets.
Exactly,
Yes, sir,
exactly. So Jeremy Harris from Como News has been going after that. The feds are prosecuting this case, not the locals. And I wonder how much we're going to find out about Homeless Inc., but I'll tell you something else. I don't think that the Democrats here in Washington are protecting the Somali community so much, as much as they're protecting the homeless industrial complex. Because don't forget how much that is woven through all of this, everything that's going on. And here's another question for you. Why, when we have an 83% of the Somali community in Minnesota, I have to look up the numbers here in Washington, but if 83% of the Somali community is unemployed, why do you, or in some form of food stamps and welfare, why do you need daycare? If they're home, why can't they watch their own kids? Why do you need to pay for the daycare? And nobody has answered that yet. Aaron, appreciate the call.
How do you get a $500,000 house?
Yeah.
In a Mercedes?
That's a better question. That's a better question, too. Aaron, appreciate the call, man. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, Emily Randall isn't the only racist in the Democrat Party. It seems like they're going back to their roots of the KKK. But seems like now somebody's actually going to do something about it. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmy Dillon, friend of the show, has put Zoran Mamdani's administration on notice if the socialist mayor of New York City decides to discriminate against white people. During his campaign, Mamdani's policies advocated to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer, whiter neighborhoods. Dillon, while speaking about Mamdani's administration, who, let's not forget, they just put that nice lady as in charge of their tenant protections, the one who says, yeah, we're going to take your property because we don't believe in private home ownership because it's white supremacy. Yeah, she actually said that. So now that lady said it, Harmeet Dillon said, just because you're white doesn't mean you have fewer rights in this country. We all have equal rights in our country, and we will not stand for New York City violating any federal law whatsoever. They should be on notice. They are on high scrutiny, and we will swoop right in and do what's necessary to protect all citizens, taxpayers, and residents of New York. During Mamdani's campaign, a policy proposal about property taxes stated that his administration will shift the tax burden from the overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods to fix the current property tax system by increasing the property taxes in the most expensive Brooklyn brownstones. Great. Thanks so much. Really appreciate that. It's not reverse racism, guys. It's just flat out racism. You can't discriminate based on somebody's skin color. But that seems to be all the rage now. That seems to be what the left wants to do. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, a deadly piece of legislation might finally be getting repealed as the Washington legislative session begins next week. Travis Couture is dropping by to tell us all about it. When we come back, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. One of the most controversial pieces to come out of the Washington State Legislature recently is the Keeping Families Together Act, which has drastically, if not completely, entirely eliminated the ability for kids to be removed from the home of somebody who's using drugs or doing other illicit things. And this legislation has actually led to the death of multiple children. In fact, at this point, I think we're talking about a few dozen in our state. And it's sad that I don't even know the number. It's sad that I don't know the number because kids are dying. And yet every time that the Republicans bring up this bill and say, we need to fix this, the Democrats basically say, nah, we're just going to keep it as is and let children die. However, with a new legislative cycle on the horizon, there's now finally an attempt that seems like it might have the momentum to actually stop this insanity. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, one of our favorite members of the Washington State Legislature, Representative Travis Couture, who's been fighting this for a very long time. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, my pleasure. I wish it was under better circumstances. So it seems like every year when you try and get this thing repealed, you get more support. Do you think you have it this time?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's real momentum to change the Keeping Families Together Act so that we don't have a state government that just stands by off to the side and watches as completely preventable child deaths and near fatalities happen in our state. And just to tell you the numbers real quick, just in the first 6 months of this year, we had almost 100 critical incidents, which is child fatalities and near fatalities in our state. And that's just for the first half of this year. That is an absolute disgusting record. There is no way it should even be anywhere close to that number. It's directly a result of the Keeping Families Together Act and not being able to remove kids from these fentanyl homes where parents are abusing and neglecting them and using hard drugs. And oftentimes it's babies and toddlers that are being killed as their parents are leaving out fentanyl pills and fentanyl powder and smoke for them to ingest or inhale, and they immediately die because it's so powerful. And so we have a real chance because the numbers are so bad and that people can't deny it any longer. And so this is my top priority other than, the budget stuff going into next session, because if we're a state government that can't save kids from this hell of abuse and neglect in homes filled with hard drugs like fentanyl, I don't know what else we can really do.
We're talking with Representative Travis Couture about the Keeping Families Together Act, which basically prevents children from being taken to the home of drug addicts who leave drugs laying around everywhere, which has led to the deaths of many children, unfortunately. Now, you've been fighting this battle for a long time. When I think of this bill, I think of you as the guy who's trying to repeal it. When you go speaking to your friends on the other side of the aisle, because we do have a Democrat-controlled Washington legislature, what are their reasons for not repealing this thing?
Well, so some of the reasons at the beginning were that they did not want to disproportionately remove minority kids from minority homes. Well, I've over time successfully argued that they've created a catch-22 where now more minority kids are dying as a result of leaving them in fentanyl-filled homes. So it's kind of a reverse equity or something, if you might call it. But their original reason was equity reasons and racial minorities not being, those kids not being taken from minority homes disproportionately. But then also they kind of framed it as a parents' rights thing, which we all kind of know is a joke because Democrats have been erasing parents' rights all like every year that I've been in the legislature, especially as it relates to schools. But this is a dangerous ideology, and nobody in the state of Washington who is reasonable or has any kind of form of common sense wants to turn on the 5 o'clock news and watch a toddler being Narcaned in our streets. Right. It is unacceptable. And, if it's anything state government should or can do, it is protect the most vulnerable people in our society, the ones who cannot protect themselves, like babies and toddlers and small children, from the absolute hell of living in a flop house with their drug-abusing parents who are literally smoking fentanyl. And the state over time has said, you know what, we're just going to put a lockbox in the house so that the parent can lock up their illicit drugs away. But, anyone knows that, and they've seen the videos or if they've seen people on the streets of Seattle or anywhere else in Washington state, that once you've started smoking fentanyl, not only do you not have the ability to care for a child, bathe them, nurture them, feed them, clothe them, you don't even have that ability for yourself anymore. So what my bill, House Bill 1092, does is it changes the impossible standard of imminent physical harm so that we can actually turn that into imminent or serious physical harm so that we actually have an ability in the courtroom and with social workers and law enforcement and doctors to be able to remove children when they're stuck into these homes. And you remember a couple years ago, Ari, where there was 3 babies in Everett in one day that were overdosed, 3 separate cases. And one of them died, unfortunately, and then 2 of them were revived at Seattle Children's Hospital. And would it shock you to know that the very next day after those 2 babies were revived, that they were sent back to the fentanyl homes with their fentanyl-abusing parents? I mean, it is unconscionable what we're doing in this state. And right now, there's a growing number of Democrats who have said, yeah, enough's enough. We've seen the numbers. We got to go back on this. That's a growing number every single day. There is going to be advocates, foster care parents, foster parents, and law enforcement, social workers, you name it, going to be descending upon the Capitol. Everyone agrees. Even the union agrees that we need to fix this. And so there's just like this small subset of radicals who kind of control the process in Olympia that are bitter clinging to this ideology that we should leave kids in places where they could inevitably die or overdose because we left them in drug houses. And this is a result of the pro-drug policies of the left. And the pendulum has swung far too wide to the left, and we need some balance in our state, and we need some balance in these laws to actually center the protection of children and not the protection of ideologies.
I think that the only thing that may remain the final obstacle is Governor Bob Ferguson, because he still has to sign this thing. So don't you think that it would be in his best interest, even from a PR standpoint, when everybody's saying he's anti-family, he's anti-kids, he's not pro-parents' rights, he's not pro-children's rights, that this would be an easy win for him? Have you gotten any indication from his office if he's in favor of repealing this thing?
You know, I haven't. I've been really focused on just the first goal of getting it through the legislature, which seems already hard enough as it is. Mm-hmm. But you're right to note that Bob Ferguson is a wild card in this, because you didn't gain the name Fentanyl Bob for the, Fentanyl Ferguson for a reason, right? Like, he's had very pro-drug abuse policies, and it's been disastrous. We've had over 3,000 drug-related deaths, mostly related to fentanyl in our state. And just to put that into context for people, that's like having a 9/11 style event happen in your state every single year, and that amount of people dying on your streets. And the Washington State Legislature just stands by and they watch the slow motion death and misery in our streets, and they call that compassion. And it's not. It's cruelty. And it's even more cruel when it's happening behind closed doors to innocent children, including babies and toddlers, in their own home. And we have absolutely every shred of power to fix this right now. And we have all the data. We need to fix it. We have all the moral authority. We need to fix this. All we got to do is have people with a backbone willing to cast aside the ideologies in favor of kids in this state. But, that 3,000 drug-related deaths that we had last year, Ari, that's more people than died during Operation Enduring Freedom. I mean, it is nuts. And the Housing First and the harm reduction stuff and this Keeping Families Together Act stuff is literally murdering people on our streets. And it is not compassion to give to your fellow man the implements and the paraphernalia for them to use to kill themselves in slow motion with. That is not compassion. That is not how you love your fellow human beings. And, Republicans have been fighting these wicked drug policies, at least for the last handful of years, when they really went hog wild with it. But now it's starting to hit this tipping point where the deaths are unacceptable, and the misery is unacceptable. And so I'm hoping, and I'm praying, and I think that I have enough votes to make some drastic changes at least in this child welfare space with the kids coming next session. And what I'm asking is that everyone hold their legislator to the fire. Don't hold your Republicans to the fire because they're all going to vote for changes, and some Democrats are as well. The bill I mentioned is a bipartisan bill. There's Democrats already signed on to it. But we need to reach out to the rest of the Dems who haven't necessarily said outright what they're going to do yet. And we need to ask them to support House Bill 1092 and save kids in this state.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Representative Travis Couture, thank you so much for keeping up the fight on this. It's been a multi-year fight because the Democrats have been standing in the way of protecting children's lives. Really appreciate you picking up the mantle of this and making sure we can try and save kids' lives. Really do appreciate you joining us today.
And I appreciate you covering it, Ari. It matters. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Wish we get to talk to you next time under better circumstances. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Remember, so that you never miss a minute of the show, download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Remember, while you're there, to share and rate it so more people can join in on the fun as well. Got a good text from Bruce here. Says, Ari, I sure hope that Travis Couture, he's talking about the last interview we had about the Keeping Families Together Act, which actually prevents CPS or any other agency from taking kids out of drug addicts' homes. Ari, I'm sure that Travis Couture is right about the repeal of this horrid law. Sadly, Washington State Democrats are so out of their minds they would call Train Spotting the feel-good movie of 1996. Oh, that's a deep cut. Not a lot of people know what that movie is, but that's good. This one here, John from Gig Harbor. Hi, Ari. With regards to your comments on Greenland, you forgot that Denmark sold the Virgin Islands to the U.S. in 1917. So they have sold territory to the U.S. before. Today, however, the people of Denmark and the people of Greenland are saying no, and no means no. They do not want to sell us Greenland. They essentially let us have all the access we need for military security, but it's their sovereign territory, and they want to keep it. The U.S. doesn't have the right of eminent domain over any piece of property in the world that we happen to fancy. And Trump's press secretary stating that a military takeover is not off the table is a blunder of massive proportions. Denmark is one of our staunchest allies and has been for a very long time, often in opposition to many of their EU partners. They stand up to Islamists, require Muslim immigrants to assimilate into Danish society or leave the country. And I'm sure you are aware how they save virtually all of their Jewish citizens from Hitler in World War II. As much as I agree with many of Trump's policies, his latest action is very hard to defend to my Danish friends and family. With charm and the right approach, he could have everything he wants, but instead he's coming across as I don't know if I could say that word on air, a buffoon and embarrassing our nation. I'll say this, is that I don't completely disagree with you. I don't. When the press secretary says it that harshly, though, I wonder if something else is going behind the scenes. Is a relationship not as good as it was before? Is there some other issue there? You're right. We have all the access. And if we want to make a deal for the minerals, then let's make a deal for the minerals. We don't have to buy the whole place. There's a reason it's called Seward's Folly with some of the stuff we've bought before. I'm not saying you're wrong, John. I think you make some excellent, excellent points. And they definitely deserve some consideration. Thank you for the text. However, there is some good news, my friends. Boeing just announced that Alaska Airlines has made one of the largest orders ever in its history. Here's Sean Duffy making the announcement today.
American manufacturing is back, whether it's aviation or automotive. We want to make the best products in the world in America, and not just sell them to Americans. We want to sell them around the world to show the great work that our men and women do in this country. And again, instead of being an importer, let's export great American products.
He's 100% right. On Wednesday, Alaska inked a deal to purchase 105 Boeing 737-10 jets and 5 Boeing 787-10 wide-body aircraft. This is the biggest aircraft purchase in the company's history. You know why they want the 787s? Because of all those new international routes they just opened up to Europe. Me personally, I'm thrilled about this because to get to Israel requires a stopover somewhere. And if I can use my Alaska miles to get somewhere in Europe, those tickets just got a lot cheaper for me. That's huge. Here's another reason why this is huge. Don't forget, Boeing and Alaska have had a pretty rocky relationship the past couple of years, ever since that door plug incident. So this is big. But last time I checked, it's too bad that those 5 Boeing 787-10s are not being built here in Washington. Because unfortunately, in Washington, we believe in punishing businesses for their success. We believe in supporting these insane unions that stop production and then put us behind with our competitors like Airbus. This is big news for Alaska. This is big news for Boeing. I just wish Washington had a bigger piece of it. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, the hearing I've been promising you, where now we know that Tim Walz is being directly implicated in the Somali fraud in Minnesota. Does that mean that Washington officials could be implicated in the fraud here? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, after our expose yesterday, Washington State is now admitting it lied about its climate data. But before we get to any of that, my friends, I've been promising this the whole show. Now, I want to set it up for you the right way. We have Travis Couture on the show all the time. We just had him a little while ago about the problems in Olympia. We have Jim Walsh on the show all the time about the problems in Olympia. We have Chris Corey on the show all the time about the problems in Olympia. The list goes on and on and on. Now, they've been screaming from the rooftops the issues with voting, the issues with fraud, the issues with kids dying because of bad legislation, you name it. But nobody's been investigating it. Now imagine for a second, in your dream of dreams, that Bob Ferguson was the one that all this was happening to instead of Tim Walz, and that you brought Chris Corey and Jim Walsh and Travis Couture and all the other Republicans up to Capitol Hill to testify about what was going on in the state so they could spill the tea on everything they knew for the entire country to hear it. Well, that's essentially what happened on Capitol Hill today. They brought in the Republican legislatures from Minnesota who've been screaming about the fraud. And every time they screamed about the fraud, nobody listened to them. But they also brought in some Democrats who were there to defend the whole thing. Representative Brandon Gill just absolutely destroyed Tim Walz today and all the Democrats in Minnesota because from this hearing, it really looks like they were in on it. After you hear all these clips, I want to know what you think. I want to know if you think that Tim Walz and crew were not just looking the other way on it, but were in on it. Here's Representative Brandon Gill.
So would you say this is the Somali population is an important demographic for Democrats to win over politically?
Unquestionably.
Got it. And do you think it would have hurt Democrats' political standing with the Somali population to investigate this fraud?
Very clearly.
Got it. So in other words, you're saying that there was a political incentive to cover up widespread Somali fraud. Is that right?
100%.
Got it. Let me ask all three of you. Did the Walz administration and Democrats intentionally, in your opinion, overlook this fraud while it was happening for political gain? I'll start with you, Ms. Robbins.
Absolutely. We have credible whistleblower reports that the Department of Human Services administration up to the OIG and the commissioner met with a group called the Minnesota Minority Child Care Association multiple times, and that they were trying to weaken protections. We wanted, we had several changes we wanted to do, and they opposed all of them.
And Mr. Hudson and Ms. Rarick, and then my time is up.
I would agree.
Absolutely. The whistleblowers confirm it.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm daydreaming, thinking, what if that was Jim Walsh? What if that was Travis Couture? What if that was Chris Corey up there doing the exact same thing? It could happen. It could absolutely happen. So now, basically, why were they allowing the fraud? Because it was their voting base. Representative Emmer took over next because you just heard about these whistleblowers. Well, if you had the whistleblowers, why didn't anybody know about these whistleblowers? Why wasn't the fraud exposed earlier?
Do you have any doubt that Governor Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
He absolutely knew that it was occurring.
Thank you. The Housing Stability Services Program was estimated to cost about $2.6 million per year, but before it was shut down last October, it was on track to run about $122 million in 2025. In fact, I think they sucked $161 million out of it from the point it started in 2020 until it was finally shut down. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. And Joe Thompson believes that 90% of that was fraud.
Yeah. The Quality Leering Center, as uncovered by Nick Shirley, received almost $10 million in funding. Is that accurate?
I believe it is.
There are more than 80 autism centers in Minnesota under investigation. Is that true?
I believe it is, yes.
It's clear that someone is criminally complicit. You can't just let this amount of money get out of your administration over a period of 7 years without knowing. There was a hearing in the state regarding the fraudulent housing stabilization program, but before that hearing, Governor Walz fired the official who was slated to testify so that they could not testify and expose what was happening under Governor Walz's watch. Has Governor Walz or Attorney General Ellison fired anyone else to your knowledge, Representative?
Not to my knowledge, and that was Eric Rumdahl, and his administration believes that he was not fired. But I say he was fired because it was too convenient.
Right. Representative Hudson, is it true that 90% of the individuals charged, regardless of what your colleague on the panel just said with his facts and figures, 90% of the individuals charged or indicted with the $250 million Feeding Our Future COVID fraud are of Somali descent?
I believe that to be correct.
Are you aware that in a 2021 video, Mr. Ellison promised that he would obstruct his own agencies in their investigation of Somali fraud?
I am very much aware of that.
It's no wonder that criminals in the Somali community felt they were free to steal taxpayer dollars. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Marion. Do you have any doubt that Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
None whatsoever.
Walz and Ellison were protecting fraudsters instead of...
That's damning, guys. Now, you may say it's partisan, but they're providing the proof. It's one thing to say, oh, it's coming from Republicans. They're providing the proof. How many times have we provided the proof? And yet, according to Nick Brown, we're racists, we're vigilantes, right? That's what he says. So how much did Tim Walz actually know about what was going on in Minnesota?
When would you say we concretely knew that widespread welfare fraud was occurring in Minnesota?
There have been reports since 2009 from the Office of Legislative Auditor. I would say the credible reports on child care fraud started surfacing 2011 to 2013.
So for over a decade?
Yes, sir.
When do you think Governor Walz knew about this fraud?
From the very beginning. He was running for governor in 2018 when there were prosecutions going on, when there was an OLA report, active cases in the news all the time.
And what was the Walz administration's response?
They actually did nothing when they got into office, and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan had been on the committee in the legislature that had hearings on child care fraud, and when they got into office, they did put $5 million into a little more money, but nothing changed.
Do you know how damning that is? This was they knew about it. It was probably going on long before then, but the first reports about it were coming to them in 2011. That's 15 years ago. I know for us older folk, we think that's like 5 minutes ago. That's 15 years ago now, guys. For 15 years, they knew about this. Tim Walz has been in office for 2 terms. That means he came into it and didn't do anything about it. In fact, looked the other way on it. Here comes Jim Jordan with even more damning evidence.
March 30th, 2021. Is it true back in March of 2021, the Minnesota Department of Education suspended payments to Feeding Our Future, that program? Is that right?
I believe that's correct.
And then a month later, they resumed payments.
That's correct.
What caused them to change their mind?
In my opinion, what caused them to change their mind was pushback from their constituency within the Somali community who accused the state agencies of being racist.
But what caused them to stop it in the first place? Was it whistleblowers coming forward? Was it like this something's not right here? What happened?
Apologize for the misunderstanding. The reason they stopped the funds in the first place is because they had credible allegations that there was fraud taking place.
From whistleblowers and others.
Correct.
And just they're doing their job looking, this doesn't make sense. We got all these programs, no one's getting fed, and yet money's going out the door like crazy. So they suspended it. And then they started it back up, right? Was there any threat of a lawsuit from the Somali community and folks affiliated with Feeding Our Future?
Mr. Jordan, there was more than a threat. They actually did.
They did? And what was the alleged claim in that lawsuit?
That they were victims of racial discrimination.
Oh, they played the race card, huh? All this fraud going on, money going out, and they played the race card.
Played the race card, you say? That sounds really, really, really familiar. In fact, that's exactly what Nick Brown does when you bring this stuff up.
But I was really concerned was about the level of harassment, sort of random vigilante people just showing up on people's doorsteps. Like, that would make all of us scared. And some of the rhetoric around it, frankly, is racist, and sort of the hate that we've seen generated around that, and that's an area of concern for me as well. And so I think we need to investigate things that are happening. We need to hold people accountable, but we need to also tamper down some of these harassing allegations and see if that's something that we need to look into as well.
That's the playbook. And in fact, one of the things that was revealed during the Feeding Our Future scandal, and just to catch everybody up, because this term is thrown around a lot and a lot of people forget what the actual scandal was. Feeding Our Future is a nonprofit organization that supposedly distributed 12.9 million meals to needy kids. Turns out they didn't distribute a single one. And the people who collected all that money and didn't actually use it on food donated to Ilhan Omar, and she had her campaign events at their facility. You didn't think to yourself, where's all the food you're supposedly giving out? Also, Ilhan Omar passed a legislation that allowed them to do this because it had no guardrails on it to prevent fraud. But one of the things that was revealed during this was that Feeding Our Future was threatening people who were asking too many questions with charges of racism. We'll call you a racist if you ask too many questions about this. Leave us alone. It's literally the playbook. Literally the playbook. Brandon Gill has a whole lot more to add to this.
I want to start with you, Mr. Balu. Again, thank you for being here. Let me ask you, does large-scale Somali immigration make Minnesota stronger or weaker?
Certainly stronger.
Certainly stronger. Do you know what percentage of Somali-headed households in Minnesota are on food stamps?
No.
54%. Do you know what that number is for native Minnesota-headed households?
Well, to be clear, a majority of the...
It's 7%. There's a big difference between 54% and 7%, is there not?
Excuse me, sir, could I answer the question?
Let me move on. We've got a lot of questions here. What percentage of Somali-headed households in Minnesota are on Medicaid?
I don't know.
It's 73%. Do you know what that number is for Minnesota native households?
Again, you're using the phrase Minnesota native households, but the majority...
The number is 18%. That's quite an astounding difference. I think we would agree.
Can I answer the question, please?
Let me ask you one more, and then we can go on to that. What percentage of Somali-headed households are on welfare in general?
I don't know.
It's 81%. What about, let me just ask you, after 10 years of being in the United States, what percentage of Somali immigrant households continue to be on welfare?
I don't know.
The number is 78%. So even after 10 years, 78% of Somali immigrant households continue to be on welfare. Do you know what that number is for native Minnesota-headed households?
Again, you're using
non-Somali immigrant-headed households.
If I can just answer the question, when you're using the phrase native Minnesotans, the majority of Somali Minnesotans are as Minnesotan as any of us. They were born in the United States. It's only 8,000 of the 108,000 Somali.
Nevertheless, the welfare usage is astoundingly different. Let me ask you again, does that make Minnesota stronger or weaker?
Again, I'd like the opportunity to answer the question here. So, again, the majority of Somali Minnesotans are born in the United States, as I understand it.
Okay, well, what percentage of working-age Somalians who have been in the U.S. for 10 years or more, how many of them speak English very well?
I don't know.
About half. The answer is about half. That seems pretty low, doesn't it?
Again, I keep trying to...
It doesn't sound like something that makes our country stronger to me, and I think most Americans would agree with me on that. It
sounds like a drain on Minnesota is what it sounds like. And the point that guy's trying to make about native, not native, it doesn't matter. Because what it's showing is that even the Somalis who were born in this country have then been born into a lifestyle where it's you live off the government, you don't go get a job. That's a problem. Something else about the Feeding Our Future scandal. You can't just lie and say you gave out 12.9 million meals. There have to be people whose names you used as recipients for those meals. A lot of people in these fraud scandals, especially the autism one, and the autism fraud scandal was that they said that people said in the Somali community that their kids had autism. And then what happened was they got all this money for autism treatment and they were getting kickbacks. So great, 90 people were charged in this. What about the hundreds, if not thousands of people that were part of the fraud? It's so much bigger than all that. You want to know why Tim Walz is all over this shooting by the ICE agents today of the woman who tried to ram them with a car? Because today was basically a hearing on Tim Walz's involvement in the fraud. You should look at the governor before Tim Walz and the governor before that, because this happened on all of their watches, and they all either enabled it, looked the other way, or fired the whistleblowers like Tim Walz did that could have exposed all of it. Make no mistake about it. The reason that Tim Walz is now saying he's going to mobilize the National Guard against ICE is because he needs to distract from that hearing that was on Capitol Hill today.
And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information.
Did Tim Walz just call for an insurrection against the United States? Because that's what it sounded like. That the National Guard, the Minnesota National Guard, is going to be called up to fight ICE, to arrest ICE, to engage with ICE. That sounds like what could result in a deadly insurrection. Also, it just takes like 2 seconds for Trump to federalize the Minnesota National Guard, and they're not going anywhere. But the reason Tim Walz did this is because Tim Walz was thrilled that the shooting happened today. Make no mistake about it, he was thrilled. And by the way, there's some new questions about this vehicle that we're driving around. We had questions beforehand, but some eagle-eyed social media users noticed this. If you don't know what happened this morning, what happened was there's a video of a car which is diagonal across the street. And what happens is the ICE agents are ordering the person to get out of the car and stop. And what happens is the person takes off, clips an ICE agent, and ICE agent opens fire, killing the woman behind the wheel, and it crashes into other cars. However, people have analyzed this video more than the Zapruder film at this point, and they notice something interesting. It's got Missouri plates. Missouri and Minnesota, not that close together. In addition, it's got a whole bunch of Kansas City stickers on the back. I don't want to get conspiratorial, but is this a protester who came to town to protest ICE? The video starts with the car diagonal across the street. We don't know what started this. Did the person attempt to engage with ICE before all this? We don't know. We don't know.
Ari, this reminds me of a geography lesson for me, because we talked about this when you first saw that, and I kind of scrunched up my nose at first. I'm like, Missouri and Minnesota are pretty close together. You just said casually that they are not close. Do you know how not close they are?
Several states are in between them.
How about by car?
Yeah.
716 miles or 11 and a half hours.
There you go. So think about this for a second. Remember how everybody was so mad that Kyle Rittenhouse went somewhere he wasn't supposed to be to go be part of the protest and all that? What was this car doing there? Now, if they just moved to Minnesota, fine. But how did they get hundreds of protesters mobilized in the middle of a workday to go challenge ICE today? Do you think it's because they're bringing in people from other states for the fight? Think of all the people that were going back and forth between Seattle and Portland during the Summer of Love. Think of all the people that descended on the Portland ICE facility who were from out of town. Think of all the people who went to Los Angeles to pick a fight with ICE. Was this an activist who was picking a fight with ICE before this tragedy even started? And we don't know is why that car was there in the first place. Did it attempt to ram ICE agents beforehand? Tim Walz was thrilled about this today. Tim Walz was thrilled this woman is dead because it distracts from the hearing that was all about him. Now, Mike, give a little peek behind the curtain for everybody here in the studios. We have 2 TVs in my booth and 2 TVs in your booth. Above you, usually you've got Fox or CNN or whatever it is on, right? If there's a Seahawks game, the Seahawks game is on, right? That's what usually I have in your booth.
And if I've got a spare screen available, something local.
Something local, right. You're always checking the local news too, right. In my booth, usually the TVs are off. But today, one of them has been on. It's been on Fox News this entire time. And what they keep talking about and have not stopped playing is the video of that car on repeat, going again and again and again. You know what I haven't seen at all? The testimony today from Capitol Hill since this morning. Tim Walz is thrilled about this shooting because now even Fox News isn't talking about the testimony today. They're talking about defending the ICE agents. They're talking about whether or not it was justified. They're talking about whether or not it was self-defense. And they're not talking about Tim Walz and the scandal that he seems up to his eyeballs in fraud in. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, because when we come back, is the Wraith on the roads of Washington State? That's right, that terrible 80s movie may have actually come to life. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back, but first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, so that way you and your friends never miss a minute of the show, download the KVI app and subscribe to the Ari Hoffman Show on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I was thinking during the break, by the way, when I first saw the video this morning of that car going after the ICE agent, something didn't make sense. Why were there protesters at this random residential street ready to film this thing? Why were they there? Now, if this woman in the car was actually a protester from out of state, which is looking more and more likely that she was, then of course the protesters are going to be there because she went to find ICE with the protesters. And they were hoping for engagement. They were hoping for a conflict. As I said at the beginning of the show today, before we knew half this information, we didn't know how this thing started. And if these activists only started filming at this point or started posting the videos without the beginning, you should be asking yourself why. Does it show that car trying to hit ICE officers beforehand? Does it show that car engaging with the ICE agents in an aggressive manner? Because we had a caller earlier in the show today who said, Ari, I don't think the shooting is justified. Perfectly reasonable thought process. But then I said, what if you had found out that that car had challenged ICE agents beforehand? What would you have thought? Oh, yeah, that's a problem. Then I understand why the officer's scared. Exactly. Speaking of bad motorists, by the way, Mike sent this to me, and he tagged it with the Wraith. Okay, for those of you who don't know, this 80s movie that's so bad it's bad good, not like Roadhouse that's so bad it's good, this is bad good, which it's not great. It's not great. You got a Clint Howard in that movie, and he looks the way he always does. Here's who you got in that movie, who I don't think he had a career aside from this, Mike. The head bad guy who's got all the hair, I didn't recognize him in Face Off. He's the other bad guy in Face Off, not Nicolas Cage. He's the other bad guy in Face Off. You've got a Charlie Sheen. Apparently, the director for, I think it was Major League, was so worried after seeing this movie, they didn't want to have Charlie Sheen in Major League because they thought he was going to tank the movie because this movie was so bad. What's it about? It's about road pirates who have killed somebody. They have killed Jamie. And then Charlie Sheen comes from out of nowhere. Jake, I can't believe I remember their names. Jake comes from out of nowhere on a motorcycle. And he's there for the girl whose name is, I don't know, but she gets naked a lot in that movie. Anyway, the girl who gets naked a lot in that movie was Jamie's girlfriend. And what happens is he's there, this guy Jake, who you don't know who he is. He's mysterious, and he rides a motorcycle, and he comes to town, and he's not afraid of the road pirates. But then there's this mysterious black Dodge. And I've asked my friends at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram if I can buy the Wraith car. And they said it was a concept car, not for sale. And I always found it was weird that this Ghost Space car had Dodge branding on it. Yes, the Ghost Space cars apparently get their cars from Dodge. So what happens? He challenges the road pirates. And they race each other. And what does he always do? Speeds ahead of them and then turns his car sideways so they crash into him, exploding. But then he comes back to life like a wraith, man. Like a wraith. He's like a wraith, man. There's this video going around from the Washington State Patrol here in Washington where this Washington State Patrol trooper clocked a driver, according to Como News, screaming down Interstate 5 at a speed that's hard to believe. Shortly before 11 p.m. on New Year's Eve, a trooper was pulled over on the right shoulder of I-5 in SeaTac near South 188th Street to look for a car that was seen by another trooper traveling at an extremely high rate. Washington State Patrol said the vehicle passed the trooper at 156 miles an hour. Not only was it foggy that night, but the car had no lights on. It was briefly seen racing past the trooper's dash cam. That's it, because the vehicle quickly disappeared into the fog and was not found. Ooh. Now, the video, if you've seen it circulating on social media, I think the reason Mike's head went to the Wraith thing is because there's like a flash of lightning or some kind of light, and the car just, poof, disappears into the fog. Almost as if it has been erased from existence. Hey, Charlie Sheen, are you driving a Dodge at over 150 miles an hour on I-5? Are you in town? We'd love to have you on the show. I saw that documentary about your life. It's something tragic. It's something. But do you think the Wraith is on the Washington streets? I know a whole bunch of you right now are like, I forgot about that dumb movie. Just so you know, so did I. You can stream it on Amazon. That's right. It's free on Amazon. I don't even think you have to pay for that sucker. But it is over there on Amazon if you want to go check out the really, really bad Wraith movie. It's terrible. It's really horrible. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, more of your texts, more of your phone calls, and Washington finally admits it lied about climate data after our friend Todd Myers exposed them for it. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you and your friends never miss a minute of the show. So remember yesterday we had our friend Todd Myers on the show? And Todd was telling us from the Washington Policy Center that the state had released this report. And then the report said, look how good we're doing at combating climate change. And Todd went, because every time they've tried to combat climate change, things have only gotten worse. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. So Todd started digging into the numbers, and you can see all this over on his social media channels and over at the Washington Policy Center website. He started digging into all of this, and none of it added up, and none of it made sense. So they issued a press release, issued a few articles, called it out, came on my show, and what do you know? The Commerce Department issued this. Data entry errors significantly inflated the reported emissions reductions for commerce programs. The Washington State Department of Commerce has submitted revised greenhouse gas emissions data to the Department of Ecology for projects funded by the Climate Commitment Act during 2023 to 2025. Due to a data entry error. Oh, did you put too many zeros there? Did you not carry the one? What are we talking about here? Commerce reported that 7.5 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions would be reduced as a result of 8 rebate projects funded by the CCA that support home electrification and appliance rebates for low-income and vulnerable communities. The corrected data now estimates that 78,000 tons of emissions will be... Wait. You went from 7.5 million to 78,000? You literally put the zeros. You put too many zeros in, you dum-dums. Who's running this show? Wow, I was kidding. Well, you literally put in too many zeros? Something tells me somebody was fudging the numbers. This is all made up. They're trying to justify why they're taxing you so much because they know they want to pass more taxes on you. And they can't pass more taxes on you because you're going to say, you're taxing us all this money. Why aren't you using it? For example, anytime the Climate Commitment Act is brought up, it goes, why aren't you fixing the roads and bridges? Why not use all that money you're taxing us? Oh, we can't use it for that. No, you're addicted to spending and you're using it on dumb projects and you're using it to enhance the wealth of your friends. Like Reuben Carlyle, the guy who passed this thing, which we've dug into many, many times. Spare us your nonsense. Looks like we got some breaking news happening right now, my friends. I mean, this is really crazy, so predictable. We knew this was going to happen. We'll give it to you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
All right, for those of you commuting home tonight, a protest has been planned here in Seattle by the Seattle Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, otherwise known as SARPR, and Seattle Against War, SAW. They're having an emergency press conference to protest ICE in front of the federal building downtown. Oh, here we go again. So there's this tragedy that happens in Minneapolis, and they decide to protest in Seattle, Washington. You thought Missouri and Minnesota were far apart. How far apart are Washington and Minnesota? So now they're going to have a protest here. The last time you idiots had a protest in response to something that happened in Minnesota, we had the Summer of Love. We had an autonomous zone. We had half the country burned down by you fools. People still ask me, to this day, Ari, is that autonomous zone still a thing in Seattle? Do you know there's a trial going on right now? It is wrapping up in the King County Courthouse about the autonomous zone, about one of the black teens that was killed in the autonomous zone when they were there to protest violence against blacks by the police. Let's just be clear about this. So now you idiots are having another protest here in Seattle because never let a good crisis go to waste, right? SARPR, and SAW want to demand justice. Stand in solidarity with our neighbors in the Twin City. Why don't you guys go and take over 6 blocks of Seattle? Katie Wilson's not going to stop you. In fact, she'll probably join you. City attorney's not going to stop you. In fact, they'll probably join you. You want a police building? I bet you Sean Barnes would give you the building. I bet you would just be like, which one do you want? We'll give you any one you want. Just pick which police department building you want. Which one? You want the headquarters on Fifth Avenue? You want the West Precinct? You want the South Precinct? You want the East Precinct? Which one do you want? We will give it to you. You guys never had an opportunity like this before. Oh, yeah. So this is going to be held at the Federal Building at 6 p.m. So don't go home that way, people. Yeah, this is... Ugh. I'm tired of this already. It's exhausting keeping up with these lunatics. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
More breaking news about lunatics in Olympia and our state legislature, including the lunatic Representative Joe Fitzgibbon. Gotta watch my mouth.
Okay, Joe, can't cuss on air, man. Can't do that. Sorry, buddy. Got to drop you when you drop those kind of words on air. Can't do it. You know we love you, but can't say that on air. Cannot cuss on my radio show. Going back to the text line here. So a lot of you actually did the math on how far it is from here to Minnesota. Some of you say 1,200. Some of you say 1,500. One person says 800. I think you're on the low side. But either way, why are we having protests about Minnesota here in Seattle? Because the activists just want to protest. Whatever the cause du jour is, that's what they want to do. They just want to protest because that's what they do. They have nothing else that they do. They're like the crazies in PCU.
It's a whole new ball game on campus these days, and they call it PC.
PC?
Politically correct. And it's not just politics, it's everything. It's what you eat, it's what you wear, and it's what you say. And if you don't watch yourself, you can get in a buttload of trouble. For instance,
We have rights
you see these girls?
Choose to
Yeah.
choose.
No, you don't. Those are women. You call them girls, and they'll pop your figs.
Save the whales.
Gays in the military now.
Free Nelson Mandela.
They freed him already.
Yeah, they freed him already, and he's dead. Are they going to protest for Nelson Mandela next after they're done protesting whatever's going on in Minnesota? Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face as you drive by those lunatics in front of the Federal Building tonight. On your way home, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. For those of you, if you happen to be going by the federal building, don't go out of your way to go by the federal building. But if you happen to be going by and you are not driving, if you have a passenger in the vehicle who could take video, send it over to ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. Well, while everybody's demonizing ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, Como News has this fun story. A raccoon is no worse for wear after a dumpster diving adventure took a wrong turn, thanks to the help of the Washington State Patrol Homeland Security Division. Washington State Patrol Homeland Security was called to Coleman Dock in Seattle after Washington State ferry staff found a raccoon stuck in a garbage dumpster on the property. Don't you call, like, pest control for that or animal control? Why are you calling the Washington State Patrol Homeland Security Division? I know he's very threatening with that mask on his face. Oh, that's what it was. Somebody's wearing a mask on their face. We have to call the authorities right away. Ferry staff and Homeland Security crews then devised an improvised ladder. The creative solution allowed the raccoon to climb out and continue on its way, ensuring a happy ending to the unexpected wildlife encounter. Why would you call Homeland Security on a raccoon? I know they're really like feisty little creatures. It's like the scene in The Incredibles when that little baby sees the raccoon and is watching TV and sees the thief and thinks it's the same thing, and that little baby takes on the raccoon. It's the best scene in any of the Incredibles movies. I love both those movies. Meanwhile, here, some wild weather is on the way. But before we tell you about the wild weather, the summit at Snoqualmie's Alpental ski area opened for the season on Wednesday, unveiling the highly anticipated Edelweiss triple chairlift, also known as Chair 2. The new lift replaces the original 1967 riblet double lift and promises to enhance access to Alpental's highest point on Denny Mountain. I was kind of wondering what they were doing last season with all that. The upgrade is expected to improve reliability and speed, allowing Ski Patrol to conduct necessary avalanche mitigation work more efficiently, thereby opening up more of the mountain to skiers. The Edelweiss Triple will significantly increase uphill capacity, reducing lift wait times and offering a faster ride to the summit in approximately 6 minutes. The development is part of a 3-year modernization project at Alpental, which include the installation of the Cecil lift in 2023 and the International lift in 2024. I gotta say, what you guys got to be spending the money on is the parking lots. Why? They're an absolute zoo. You used to have people there that would tell you where to park. You don't have that anymore. And the things are absolutely, you could like destroy your suspension on those things. And there's not enough space for the cars. It's an absolute zoo. I mean, yes, I get you can get more people on the chairlifts this way. We need way more of them, or we need some solution to the parking lots. Adding 3 new chairlifts at Alpental over 3 consecutive years has fundamentally reimagined how guests experience the legendary terrain, said Guy Lawrence, president and general manager of Alpental and the summit at Snoqualmie. The character of this mountain, the passion of the community, and the thrill of the terrain remain unchanged. We've simply made it easier to access our magic. The grand opening of the Edelweiss Chair will feature celebrations, including a complimentary breakfast to the first 58 guests at the Armstrong Express Chair, followed by a ribbon-cutting ceremony, the traditional bell ringing at the Edelweiss Chair between 10 and 11 a.m., and pending avalanche mitigation. Right, you don't want to be setting off loud noises when you haven't done your avalanche mitigation yet. They know the complexity of the installation, stating that installing the Edelweiss Triple Chair has been one of the most technically complex chairlift installations in the resort's history, given the rugged terrain and construction access only available via helicopter or hiking. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished as a team. You don't get to build new lifts every day, and this one's particularly special. Yeah, that'll be good for all of you who got kids going up there for lessons. Also, you know what's going to be good? There is a winter weather warning in the Cascades until Thursday at 4 p.m. for dangerous pass travel. According to Como News, the winter weather is bringing a foot of nonstop snow, causing slick and snowy roads. Traction tires are advised for travel through the passes right now, and you must have a set of tire chains in your car at all times when driving through the pass, even if you have four-wheel drive. That's how bad it's going to be. While the mountain passes may bring challenges, the snow is a welcome sight to skiers and snowboarders. The skier, Andy Budd, said you cannot ask for a better day when he was up there yesterday. Budd made his way to Alpental and Snoqualmie with 2 friends on winter break from college early Wednesday morning to hit the slopes on opening day. The opening day was long awaited, though, with proper conditions setting in later than normal, because what happened was when you had those massive rainstorms, it actually washed away a bunch of the snow, so they had to wait for it to snow again so they could reopen. For some, opening day came at the perfect time, the middle of the week when things are a little slower. They said nobody really touched the snow yet, but overall skiers and snowboarders said they are just happy it's finally here. Yes, and I'm excited because I get to take my daughter up skiing this year, and I kind of didn't do a lot of skiing last season. I love skiing, I really do, which means I really need to get in shape for the season. I know a lot of you take your kids up to Snoqualmie. Let us know if you go to Snoqualmie. Me, personally, I like Crystal. I've never been to Stevens or Baker. It doesn't look like I'm going to be going to Stevens this year with all the road issues. Crystal's my favorite. I want to hear from you guys. Which one do you recommend? Look, we all know Whistler, best skiing in the area, but I got to go to Canada for that. They're not the 51st state yet. I don't want to support the Canadian economy. I want to support the U.S. economy. I love Crystal Mountain. I really do. I think it's our best local mountain. But I want to know if you think Stevens or Baker is better. Give us a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I absolutely love Crystal Mountain. I mean, that was like a tradition with my boys before they went off to armies and colleges and all that other kind of stuff. Was every year, as soon as we could possibly get on that mountain, we would do it. I know Mark Christopher loves Crystal Mountain. Radio legend Mark Christopher, he is all about, he offers me tickets all the time. Nice guy that he is to Crystal Mountain. I've never taken him up on it, though. I really totally should do that. But yeah, Crystal Mountain, my favorite place in the area. But I've never been to Baker or Stevens. If you think I should go to Baker or Stevens, send me a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I don't think I'm going to Stevens this year because of all the road washout conditions. But definitely on my list to go hit those up. And hey, if you think they're better, I'll give them a go. I'll see which ones I like, and maybe you'll change my mind on it. But until then, Crystal's the place for me. Snoqualmie's where you teach your kids if you're new to the area. But Crystal, Baker, Stevens, that's where you go for the more advanced stuff. Well, my friends, that's going to wrap it up for us today, but fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and more good news to keep you company while you're driving past a bunch of protesters. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.